A German shepherd stands guard outside Valley Pine Memorial Hospital, refusing to move despite the biting winter cold. For 3 days straight, the loyal dog remains at his post, his eyes fixed on the entrance doors with an intensity that stops visitors in their tracks. When security tries to lead him away, his mournful howl echoes through the parking lot, bringing tears to the eyes of hardened medical staff. But it's not until Dr. Mia Mitchell notices the worn military patches on his vest that the true story begins to unfold. A story that will shake this small military town to its core. The emergency entrance of Valley Pine Memorial stood quiet in the pre-dawn hours, its automatic doors occasionally whooshing open to admit tired nurses ending their night shifts. The first hints of sunrise painted the sky in gentle strokes of pink and gold, but the February air still carried winter's sharp bite. Dr. Mia Mitchell pulled her coat tighter as she approached the hospital entrance, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid morning air. The German shepherd's sudden appearance made her stop mid-stride. He sat with military precision beside the entrance, his black and tan coat dusted with frost from the night's cold. Despite his obvious exhaustion, his posture remained vigilant, alert. Mia had worked enough emergency room shifts to recognize service dogs, but something about this one made her pause. "Hey there, buddy," she called softly, keeping her distance. The dog's ears perked forward, but his eyes never left the hospital doors. His vest, though weathered and mud-stained, clearly marked him as a service animal, the patches that caught. Mia's attention, however, told a different story, one of military service, of battles fought far from home. Nancy Chen, the head nurse who had just finished her night shift, emerged from the building and stopped short at the sight. "He's been here since my shift started," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Won't budge, won't take food, just sits there watching." The German shepherd's ears twitched at their voices, but his focus remained unwavering. His chocolate brown eyes held such intelligence, such purpose, that Maya felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the morning cold. 20 years in emergency medicine had taught her to trust her instincts, and something about this dog's presence set off every alert in her mind. "Have you called animal control?" Mia asked, though she already knew the answer. The local shelter wouldn't open for hours, and something told her this wasn't a case of a lost pet. The dog's deliberate positioning, his military bearing, spoke of training and purpose. Nancy shook her head, pulling her scarf tighter against the cold. "Security tried to shoo him away last night. You should have heard him, Mia. His howl." She trailed off, emotion thick in her voice. "I've never heard anything so heartbreaking. Even Jorge, and you know how tough he is with strays, he just couldn't bring himself to force the issue." Mia knelt slowly, maintaining a respectful distance from the dog. His fur was matted in places, showing signs of a long journey. But his eyes, those eyes held something that made her heart ache. Recognition flickered in their depths as she studied the patches on his vest more closely. 82nd Airborne Division, she read aloud, her fingers tracing the worn embroidery. "This is a military working dog." The realization hit her hard. Valley Pine sat just 30 miles from Fort Richardson, one of the largest military bases in the state. Their hospital regularly treated service members, but this was different. The German shepherd's tail thumped once against the concrete at the mention of his unit, but his vigilant pose never wavered. A tag hung from his collar, partially obscured by his vest. With gentle movements, Mia reached out to read it. "Atlas," she said softly. "Your name." is Atlas. At the sound of his name, Atlas turned his head slightly, acknowledging her presence. For the first time, the depth of emotion in his eyes nearly knocked Mia backward. In them, she saw not just intelligence, but a desperate plea for understanding. The hospital's automatic doors opened again, releasing a rush of warm air and the familiar sounds of the emergency department starting its morning shift. Atlas's head snapped back to attention, his muscles tensing as if ready to spring into action. But he remained seated, maintaining his self-appointed vigil. "Dr. Mitchell!" A young resident approached, clipboard in hand. "We need you for rounds, and there's a case I'd like you to look at." Mia stood slowly, brushing frost from her knees. "Nancy, can you ask maintenance to bring out some blankets? And water?" She couldn't explain the urgency she felt, but something told her Atlas's presence was far from random. In her 2 decades of emergency medicine, she'd learned to trust these feelings. As she walked through the automatic doors, Mia glanced back at Atlas. The German shepherd's eyes met hers for a brief moment, and in them she saw something that stopped her heart. Recognition, relief, and beneath it all a profound grief that seemed almost human in its intensity. The morning shift began its familiar rhythm, but Mia's thoughts kept returning to the loyal dog standing guard outside. Between patients, she found herself drawn to the windows overlooking the entrance, watching as Atlas maintained his vigil. Hospital staff began gathering in small groups, discussing the mysterious guardian who had appeared in their midst. "He reminds me of my brother's service dog," commented Dr. James Torres, the chief of emergency medicine, as he joined Mia at the window. "Same training, same dedication. These dogs, they're something else entirely." Mia nodded, watching as a kind-hearted nurse tried to offer Atlas some food. The dog acknowledged her presence with gentle courtesy, but refused to be distracted from his watch. "James, have you checked if we have any military patients who might be missing their service dog?" "Already on it," he replied, his voice soft with concern. "Called Fort Richardson, too. They're checking their records, but so far, nothing matches Atlas's description or tag numbers." The morning wore on, bringing with it a steady stream of patients, broken bones, chest pains, the usual parade of human suffering that filled their emergency department. But through it all, Atlas remained at his post, his dedication unwavering even as the winter sun climbed higher in the sky. During her lunch break, Mia returned to the entrance, carrying a bowl of water and some beef jerky from the vending machine. Atlas acknowledged her approach with a slight tilt of his head, but maintained his watch on the doors. "What are you trying to tell us?" she asked softly, setting the offerings beside him. The German shepherd's eyes held such intelligence, such purpose, that Maya felt certain he understood every word. His tail thumped once against the ground, but his attention never wavered from the hospital entrance. A group of veterans visiting a former unit member in the orthopedic ward stopped to pay their respects to Atlas. One of them, an older man, with the Vietnam War cap, knelt beside the dog with tears in his eyes. "Look at his bearing," the veteran said, his voice thick with emotion. "This boy's seen combat. The way he holds himself, the way he watches, he's still on duty." Mia felt her throat tighten as she watched Atlas interact with the veterans. Though he remained focused on his self-appointed mission, there was a subtle shift in his demeanor, a recognition of kindred spirits that spoke volumes about his military background. The day shift was drawing to a close when Officer Mark Rodriguez from the local police department arrived. responding to calls about the unusual guardian at the hospital entrance. Mia watched from inside as he approached Atlas with professional caution that quickly turned to respect. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called to her through the door, "you might want to see this." He held up Atlas's tag, which he'd managed to read more fully. The numbers etched into the metal told a story that made Mia's heart race. "These are retired military working dog tags," Rodriguez explained, his face serious. "But there's something else. The date of service. This dog was part of a unit that saw heavy action in Afghanistan 5 years ago. Whatever brought him here, it's not random." Mia felt pieces of the puzzle beginning to shift in her mind, but the full picture remained frustratingly out of reach. Atlas had chosen their hospital for a reason, but what and why now, in the depths of winter, had he appeared with such single-minded purpose? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the hospital parking lot, Mia watched Atlas adjust his position slightly, compensating for stiff muscles but never abandoning his post. The dedication in his bearing, the unwavering focus in his eyes spoke of a mission not yet complete. "I'm staying late tonight," she announced to the incoming night shift supervisor. "There's something about this dog, something we're missing, and I'm going to figure out what it is." The night settled around Valley Pine Memorial like a heavy blanket, but Atlas's vigil continued, his form illuminated by the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital entrance. In the quiet hours that followed, Mia began to piece together a mystery that would reveal the true meaning of loyalty, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of war. Before we dive into this incredible story that will touch your heart and restore your faith in the unbreakable bond between humans and their four-legged companions, take a moment to let me know where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything to us, and I love hearing from our amazing community. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to share your own stories about incredible service dogs who've touched your lives. The night shift at Valley Pine Memorial settled into its familiar rhythm, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows through the quiet corridors. Dr. Mia Mitchell found herself drawn back to the window overlooking the entrance, where Atlas maintained his unwavering vigil. The German Shepherd's dedication had already captured the hearts of the hospital staff, but as the hours ticked by, his presence began to stir something deeper in their collective memory. Nancy Chen returned early for her shift, carrying a thick blanket and a thermos of warm broth. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, joining Mia at the window. "Kept thinking about him out there. You know, he reminds me of the military dogs I saw during my tour as a civilian nurse in Germany. Same intensity, same sense of purpose." Through the glass, they watched as Atlas accepted Nancy's offerings with gentle courtesy, taking small sips of the broth while never shifting his attention from the hospital doors. His military training showed in every movement, every calculated scan of his surroundings. Even in rest, he remained alert, ready. Officer Rodriguez had spent his off-duty hours researching Atlas's service history. He returned with a folder tucked under his arm, his face tight with anticipation. "Found something interesting," he said, spreading documents across the nurses' station. "Atlas served 3 tours in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne. His handler, Rodriguez, paused, emotion flickering across his features. Mia leaned forward, studying the grainy photographs that showed a younger Atlas in his prime, standing proudly beside a tall soldier with kind eyes and a steady smile. "Staff Sergeant Michael," Connor, she read aloud. What happened to him? That's where it gets complicated, Rodriguez replied, shuffling through more papers. Connor survived an IED attack 5 years ago, largely thanks to Atlas. The dog got him to safety, saved his whole unit. Both were decorated for valor. He hesitated, his finger tracing a line of text. But after that, the records get spotty. Connor retired due to injuries, and Atlas was retired with him. They disappeared from the system. The revelation sent ripples through the small group gathered around the documents. Mia felt her chest tighten as she looked back at Atlas, seeing him now not just as a mysterious guardian, but as a decorated war hero who had already proved his capacity for extraordinary loyalty. Wait, Nancy interjected, her eyes widening. 5 years ago, you said. Mia, wasn't that when we had that big influx of wounded veterans from the 82nd? Remember that week when we barely slept? Mia's mind raced back, sifting through memories of countless patients, countless stories. The spring of 2019 had been particularly challenging. Their hospital chosen to receive several critical cases due to their proximity to Fort Richardson. She remembered the controlled chaos, the endless surgeries, the helicopter crash, she whispered, the memory suddenly crystal clear. We lost power during that storm, had to operate by generator. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the military records. Rodriguez, does it say where Connor was stationed after his retirement? The officer nodded, pulling out a map marked with highlighted routes. Last known address was in the mountains, about 50 miles north. Pretty remote. Local sheriff says Connor kept to himself, but he was well liked in the community. Always had Atlas with him. Mia studied the map, her medical mind calculating distances, possibilities. That's nowhere near here. Atlas didn't end up at our doors by accident. He chose this hospital specifically. She turned to Nancy, whose face had gone pale with recognition. The veterans' wing, Nancy breathed. 4th floor. We just converted it last month, but we haven't officially opened it yet. What if? She couldn't finish the thought, but she didn't need to. They all understood the implication. Dr. James Torres joined them, his white coat wrinkled from a long day of surgeries. I made some calls to my contacts at the VA, he said, quietly. Connor's been off the grid for years, but his medical records... He paused, choosing his words carefully. The IED attack left him with severe injuries, the kind that don't heal completely. Mia felt pieces of the puzzle shifting into place, forming a picture that made her heart ache. She thought of Atlas's unwavering focus on the hospital entrance, his desperate howl when they tried to move him, the way he seemed to be waiting for something or someone. We need to check the admissions records, she said, already moving toward the computer terminal. Not just recent ones. Go back through every John Doe, every unidentified patient from the past week. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling. Up database after database. Nancy leaned over her shoulder, scanning the entries. There, she pointed suddenly. 3 days ago, Mountain Rescue brought in a man found in a remote cabin. Severe cardiac event. No ID, no phone, nothing but some old military dog tags. She looked up, her eyes wide. He's in ICU. We couldn't identify him because he's been unconscious since admission, Mia finished, already reaching for her access card. 4th floor, the veterans' wing. The same floor Atlas had been watching, waiting for someone to make the connection. The small group moved with urgent purpose toward the elevator, their footsteps echoing through the quiet corridors. Mia's mind raced with possibilities. with the incredible journey that must have brought Atlas to their door. The German shepherd had somehow tracked his handler across 50 miles of wilderness, through winter storms and rough terrain, driven by a bond that transcended ordinary understanding. As they emerged onto the 4th floor, the lights of the city twinkled through the windows, creating patterns on the newly polished floors of the veterans' wing. The ICU unit lay at the far end, its monitoring equipment casting a soft blue glow over the quiet space. Maya approached the nurse's station, her voice barely above a whisper. "The John Doe from Mountain Rescue. What room?" The night nurse, startled by their sudden appearance, checked her charts. "Room 412. But he's still critical, Doctor. No changes since admission." They gathered outside room 412, peering through the window at the still figure surrounded by medical equipment. The man's face was partially obscured by an oxygen mask, but Mia could see the strong jaw, the military bearing that remained even in unconsciousness. More telling were the scars, old wounds that told the story of sacrifice and survival. "It's him," Rodriguez confirmed softly, comparing the face to the photograph in his hand. "Staff Sergeant Michael Connor. Atlas led us right to him." Mia felt tears prick at her eyes as she thought of the loyal dog keeping his vigil below, somehow knowing exactly where his handler needed him to be. "Nancy, call security. Tell them to bring Atlas up. Use the service elevator. It's closer to where he's stationed." Minutes later, the elevator doors opened to reveal Jorge, the security guard, gently leading Atlas on a makeshift leash. The German shepherd's demeanor changed instantly as he stepped onto the 4th floor. His nose worked the air, and his powerful body trembled with recognition. They led him slowly toward room 412, watching as Atlas's training warred with his obvious desire to rush forward. At the door he stopped, his entire body going still as he caught sight of his handler through the window. The low whine that escaped him carried years of loyalty, of partnership, of love that had driven him across mountains to find his person. "It's okay," Mia whispered, pushing the door open. "Go to him, boy." Atlas moved with infinite gentleness to Connor's bedside. With exquisite care, he rested his head on the edge of the mattress, his eyes never leaving his handler's face. The monitors continued their steady beeping, but something in the room had changed, as if a missing piece had finally fallen into place. "Look," Nancy gasped softly, pointing to the cardiac monitor. The rhythm had shifted subtly, strengthening even. As they watched, Connor's fingers twitched, and Atlas's tail began to wag with desperate hope. Maya stepped forward, checking vitals with practiced efficiency. "He's responding," she announced, her voice thick with emotion. "After 3 days of nothing, he's responding. Atlas." She couldn't finish the sentence, overcome by the power of what they were witnessing. The loyal German shepherd, who had traveled so far and waited so patiently, finally allowed himself to relax slightly, though his eyes never left his handler's face. His mission was complete. He had found his person, had brought help in the only way he knew how. Now, he would wait again, for as long as it took, for his handler to return to him. The first light of dawn painted Valley Pine Memorial's veterans' wing in soft golden hues. Dr. Mia Mitchell sat in the quiet observation room adjacent to Connor's ICU unit, watching Atlas maintain his new vigil beside his handler's bed. The German shepherd hadn't moved from his position since being allowed into the room, his loyalty now finding expression in quiet companionship rather than desperate waiting. Through the observation window, Maya studied the remarkable bond between man and dog. Atlas's head rested gently on the edge of the bed, his eyes fixed on Connor's face with an intensity that spoke of years of partnership and trust. Every slight movement, every change in the monitor's rhythm drew an immediate response from the vigilant shepherd. Nancy Chen entered quietly, carrying fresh coffee and a bag that smelled of warm pastries. "Thought you could use these," she whispered, setting them down. "Any change?" They both knew she wasn't just asking about Connor's medical status. The entire hospital had become invested in this unfolding story of extraordinary devotion. "His vitals are stronger," Mia replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "And look at this." She pulled up the overnight charts on her tablet. "See these patterns? Every time Atlas shifts position or makes contact, there's a positive response in the readings. It's subtle, but it's there." The morning shift began to stir around them, the quiet efficiency of the ICU staff creating a gentle rhythm of care. Word had spread quickly about the military dog who had tracked his handler to their hospital, and each staff member who passed by the room paused to witness the touching scene through the observation window. Dr. James Torres arrived for his morning rounds, his face showing the same mix of professional interest and emotional investment that had captured them all. "I spoke with the neurologist," he said softly, joining them at the window. "She's fascinated by the readings we're getting. Says she's never seen anything quite like this response pattern." Mia nodded, remembering the countless studies she'd read about the healing power of animal companionship. But this was different. Atlas wasn't just providing comfort. His presence seemed to be actively drawing Connor back from wherever his consciousness had retreated. Officer Rodriguez returned mid-morning, carrying a worn duffel bag that made Atlas's ears perk up instantly. "Found this at Connor's cabin," he explained, setting it down carefully. "Thought it might help." Inside were pieces of Connor's life, old photographs, military memorabilia, and most importantly, Atlas's spare service vest and some familiar toys. The sight of these personal belongings brought Connor's story into sharper focus. Photos showed him and Atlas in Afghanistan, dust-covered and alert but always together. Others captured quieter moments, training sessions, shared meals, the gradual transformation of handler and military working dog into something deeper, family. "Look at this," Nancy said, carefully lifting a framed certificate. "Atlas received the Dickin Medal. That's the highest honor an animal can receive for military service." She read the citation aloud, her voice catching as she described how Atlas had not only saved Connor during the IED attack, but had then led the entire unit to safety while under fire. Mia felt her throat tighten as she studied a particular photograph that showed Connor and Atlas at a military hospital, both bandaged, but inseparable. The date stamp placed it just after the IED incident. Even then, Atlas's dedication had been unwavering, staying by his handler through recovery. "We found his medical records," Torres added, spreading files across the observation room desk. "The AED attack left Connor with severe nerve damage and a traumatic brain injury. He received excellent care initially, but..." He paused, shaking his head. Living in such a remote location, some of these conditions would have been challenging to monitor properly. Mia studied the records, her medical mind cataloging symptoms and progression. The cardiac event wasn't sudden, she realized. There would have been warning signs. Atlas must have recognized them, must have known something was wrong. She looked at the loyal shepherd with newfound amazement. He didn't just find help, he chose this specific hospital because of the new veterans wing. Through the window, they watched as a nurse entered to check Connor's vitals. Atlas shifted slightly to allow access, but maintained his protective position. His behavior showed years of experience in medical settings, understanding the necessity of treatment while never abandoning his watchful care. The mountain rescue team's report just came in, Rodriguez said, adding another file to the growing collection. Connor's cabin showed signs of recent renovations, ramps, modified doorways. He'd been planning ahead, adapting his space as his condition progressed. But the nearest neighbor was 5 miles away. If he had a medical emergency, the implication hung heavy in the air. Without Atlas's extraordinary intervention, Connor's story might have had a very different ending. The German Shepherd had not only recognized the crisis, but had formulated and executed a plan that spoke of remarkable intelligence and devotion. Mia's attention was drawn back to the ICU room as Atlas suddenly lifted his head, his entire body alert. Connor's fingers had twitched. A small movement, but one that sent ripples of excitement through the monitoring equipment. The shepherd's tail began to wag with cautious hope. The medical team moved swiftly into position, Maya among them, as years of training took over. But even as they worked, checking responses and adjusting medications, Atlas remained a calm, steady presence. His military training showed in how he stayed close without interfering, understanding his role in this different kind of battlefield. Connor's eyelids fluttered, fighting against the weight of unconsciousness. Atlas let out a soft whine, the first sound he'd made since entering the room. The noise seemed to reach through the layers of sedation and medical intervention, drawing his handler toward awareness. "Staff Sergeant Connor," Mia called softly, performing the standard orientation checks. "You're at Valley Pine Memorial Hospital. You're safe." She paused, watching his response. "And you're not alone. Atlas is here." At the mention of his dog's name, Connor's hand moved with purpose, reaching toward the side of the bed where Atlas kept his vigil. The German Shepherd pressed his nose gently into his handler's palm, and the monitors recorded the surge of recognition, of connection re-established. Torres and Nancy exchanged glances filled with professional satisfaction and personal joy. They had witnessed many recoveries, many reunions, but this one carried special significance. The bond between handler and military working dog had transcended physical limitations, geographic distance, and medical odds. Outside the ICU, the hospital continued its daily rhythm, but word of Connor's improvement spread quickly through the halls. Staff members who had watched Atlas's dedicated vigil at the entrance now shared in the triumph of his faith, rewarded. The story of the German Shepherd who had refused to leave, who had somehow known exactly where he needed to be, became part of Valley Pine Memorial's legacy. Mia updated Connor's charts, noting the remarkable improvement in his vital signs since Atlas's arrival. The medical implications were fascinating, but it was the deeper truth that moved her. The power of a connection that could guide a loyal dog across mountains and lead him to exactly the right place at exactly the right time. As the morning progressed, more family photos emerged from Connor's duffel bag, telling the story of a partnership forged in war that had evolved into an unshakable bond. Atlas appeared in every image, his progression from military working dog to trusted companion, protector, and ultimately savior clearly visible through the years. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the observation room and casting long shadows. Across the collection of documents, photographs, and medical records that painted a picture of extraordinary loyalty. Through it all, Atlas maintained his position, his dedication unwavering even as his mission shifted from searching to protecting, from waiting to healing. Staff Sergeant Michael Connor's first coherent words emerged in a whisper, rough from disuse, but clear in their purpose. "Atlas," he breathed, his fingers seeking the familiar touch of his companion's fur. The German shepherd's tail wagged with gentle joy as he pressed closer, maintaining the connection that had guided him across 50 miles of wilderness to this moment. Dr. Mia Mitchell watched the reunion through the ICU window, her medical training warring with the emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. Connor's vital signs had stabilized remarkably since Atlas's arrival, showing improvement that defied conventional explanation. The bond between handler and military working dog seemed to transcend ordinary understanding of recovery and healing. His latest blood work shows significant improvement, Dr. Torres reported, joining her at the window. The cardiac enzymes are normalizing, and his neurological responses are getting stronger by the hour. He shook his head in amazement. "I've seen animal therapy work wonders before, but this is something else entirely." Through the glass, they watched as Connor struggled to maintain consciousness, his eyes repeatedly seeking out Atlas's familiar form. The German shepherd remained steady, offering silent support and occasional gentle nudges of encouragement. His military training showed in how he anticipated his handler's needs, shifting position to provide better support without being asked. Nancy Chen arrived with Connor's updated medical records, her face tight with concern as she reviewed the history. "The original injuries from the IED were more extensive than we thought," she said softly. "Multiple surgeries, nerve damage, traumatic brain injury. The fact that he was living independently in such a remote location." "He wasn't alone," Mia corrected gently, watching Atlas adjust his position to accommodate a visiting nurse. "Look at how Atlas responds to medical procedures. He's not just a service dog. He's been acting as a full-time medical assistant." The German shepherd's behavior in the ICU revealed years of experience supporting his handler's health needs. Officer Rodriguez entered the observation room carrying a laptop. "Got something you need to see," he said, setting up the computer. The mountain rescue team sent over their helmet cam footage from Connor's cabin. The screen flickered to life, showing a remote mountain home surrounded by snow-covered pines. The footage revealed a space carefully adapted for someone with mobility challenges. Ramps replaced steps, doorways had been widened and specialized. Equipment was strategically placed throughout. But what caught their attention were the details that spoke of Atlas's role. Elevated food and water bowls, positioned to allow him to maintain visual contact with his handler. A modified harness hanging by the door, and a wall-mounted system of ropes and pulleys that the dog had clearly been trained to operate. "He didn't just help Connor survive the war," Rodriguez observed. "He helped him build a life afterward." The officer's voice carried the weight of understanding that came from his own military service. "These working dogs, they redefine what loyalty means." Mia studied the footage carefully, her medical mind cataloging signs she hadn't noticed before. Atlas's bed in the cabin was positioned to allow him to monitor his handler's breathing during sleep. Emergency medications were stored at dog height, with specialized containers that a trained animal could retrieve. Every detail spoke of a partnership that had evolved to meet each new challenge. "Look at the dates on these prescriptions," Nancy pointed out, examining bottles visible in the footage. "Some of them are nearly expired. If Connor was having trouble getting to his appointments..." She didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood the dangerous combination of pride, isolation, and limited access to medical care. The sound of movement from the ICU drew their attention back to the present. Connor had managed to raise his bed slightly, his hand never leaving Atlas's fur as he fought to speak. Mia moved quickly to his bedside, Atlas shifting seamlessly to allow her access while maintaining contact with his handler. "How..." Connor's voice was weak but determined. "How did he find this place?" The effort of speaking left him exhausted, but his eyes held fierce intelligence as they moved between his dog and the medical team. Mia checked his vitals before responding, marveling at the steady improvement in his readings. "Atlas brought us to you," she explained gently. "He led us right to where you needed to be." She watched understanding dawn in Connor's eyes, followed by a pride that brought tears to their corners. "Always had my back," Connor whispered, his fingers tightening slightly in Atlas's fur. The German shepherd responded with a soft whine of agreement, his entire body radiating contentment now that his handler was awake and speaking. Dr. Torres joined them, performing a quick neurological assessment while explaining the situation. "You suffered a cardiac event at your cabin. Atlas somehow made his way here, over 50 miles through winter conditions. He stood guard outside our hospital for 3 days until we made the connection." Connor's eyes widened slightly at this information, his gaze turning to his faithful companion with a mix of amazement and deep understanding. The new veterans wing, he managed, saw the announcement in the paper. Even through his weakness, a smile touched his lips. Smart boy, knew where to find help. The revelation sparked a flurry of activity in the observation room. Nancy quickly retrieved the local newspaper archives, finding the small article that had announced Valley Pine Memorial's new specialized veterans unit. The piece had included a photograph of the hospital's distinctive entrance, the same entrance where Atlas had maintained his determined vigil. He didn't just remember the building, Mia realized, amazement coloring her voice. He remembered that this was a place equipped to handle military injuries, somewhere that would understand your specific needs. The level of reasoning this implied was extraordinary, even for a highly trained military working dog. Through the window, they watched as Connor drifted back to sleep, his hand still resting protectively on Atlas's head. The German shepherd adjusted his position slightly, settling in for another watch, his devotion unwavering even as his mission shifted from rescue to recovery. Rodriguez added the newspaper article to their growing collection of evidence documenting this remarkable story. "The VA's going to want to hear about this," he said quietly. "This kind of bond, this level of medical support from a service animal. It could change how we approach veteran care in remote areas." Mia nodded, already making notes for her official report. The medical implications were fascinating, but it was the human element that touched her most deeply. Atlas had not only recognized a medical emergency and formulated a plan, he had chosen the exact facility best equipped to help his handler. Nancy returned from checking Connor's latest readings, her face glowing with professional satisfaction. "His numbers keep improving," she reported. The cardiologist is amazed at the recovery rate. Whatever Atlas is doing, it's working better than any medicine we could prescribe. Through the ICU window they watched as Atlas maintained his protective position, his presence a constant source of comfort and stability. The German Shepherd's military training showed in his alertness, his ability to assist medical staff while never leaving his post, but it was the depth of his dedication that continued to amaze everyone who witnessed it. The day shift changed to evening, bringing new staff members who had heard the story but were seeing its reality for the first time. Each person who passed by the ICU room paused to observe the extraordinary partnership between handler and dog, their own beliefs about the limits of animal intelligence and loyalty being quietly redefined. Maya updated Connor's charts, noting not just the medical improvements, but the intangible benefits of Atlas's presence. The German Shepherd had transformed a sterile hospital room into a space of healing and hope, his unwavering faith in his handler's recovery becoming a source of inspiration for the entire medical team. As evening settled over Valley Pine Memorial, the staff gathered in the small conference room adjacent to the ICU for their nightly briefing. Dr. Mia Mitchell spread Connor's medical files across the table, adding new notes that documented his remarkable progress. The story of how he had come to their care, guided by his faithful German Shepherd, had captured the attention of medical professionals throughout the hospital. Chief of Surgery Dr. Elena Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the latest test results with intense interest. "I've been practicing medicine for 30 years, she said, shaking her head in amazement. "But I've never seen anything quite like this. The improvement in his cardiac function since Atlas arrived. It defies conventional medical explanation." The conference room walls were now covered with photographs and documents that told the story of Staff Sergeant Michael Connor and Atlas. Military commendations hung beside medical charts, creating a timeline that stretched from their first deployment, together, to their current reunion in the ICU. Each piece added depth to their understanding of this extraordinary partnership. Nancy Chen entered with a thick folder tucked under her arm, her face bright with discovery. "Found his original military medical records," she announced, carefully spreading the documents across the table. "The reports from the IED incident are incredible. Atlas didn't just save Connor's life, he saved the entire unit." Mia studied the detailed accounts of that fateful day in Afghanistan. The official reports painted a picture of chaos and courage, describing how Atlas had not only dragged his injured handler to safety, but had then returned through heavy fire to lead other wounded soldiers to evacuation points. The German Shepherd had sustained injuries himself, but had refused to leave his post until every member of the unit was secure. "Look at this." Dr. Torres pointed to a notation in the field medic's report. "Even in the military hospital, Atlas found ways to assist with Connor's care. He learned to alert staff to changes in vital signs before the monitors caught them. The medical team actually started incorporating him into their treatment protocols. The revelation sparked a new understanding of Atlas's behavior in their ICU. His positioning beside Connor's bed, his responses to medical equipment, his interaction with staff. It wasn't just instinct or training. He had years of experience as an active participant in his handler's medical care. Lieutenant Maya Parker from Fort Richardson's Veterinary Corps arrived, bringing with her Atlas's complete military service record. "His training was exceptional," she explained, showing them detailed evaluations from his time as a working dog. "But what's really remarkable is how he adapted those skills to meet Connor's changing needs after retirement. The documents revealed how Atlas had essentially created his own service dog protocol, combining his military training with new skills specifically tailored to support Connor's medical conditions. He had learned to retrieve medications, operate specialized equipment, and even assist with physical therapy exercises. Through the ICU window, they watched as Atlas demonstrated this expertise, adjusting his position to help Connor shift more comfortably in the hospital bed. The German Shepherd's movements were precise, showing years of practice in supporting his handler's mobility needs while maintaining protective watchfulness. "We've been analyzing the mountain rescue footage," Officer Rodriguez added, pulling up enhanced images on his laptop. "The tracks around Connor's cabin tell an amazing story. After Connor collapsed, Atlas first tried to rouse him, then secured the cabin before setting out for help. He even closed the door to preserve heat." The level of reasoning this implied stunned the medical team. Atlas hadn't just reacted to an emergency, he had assessed the situation, taken steps to ensure his handler's immediate safety, and then formulated a plan that required remembering information from a newspaper article and traveling 50 miles through winter conditions. Mia's attention was drawn to a series of photographs showing Atlas's training exercises in Afghanistan. "He was originally trained in pathfinding," she noted, understanding dawning in her voice. "That's how he navigated to us. He used his military search and rescue training to plot a route to the hospital." Dr. Elena Rodriguez nodded, adding her own insight. "And look at his behavioral patterns since arriving. The way he positioned himself at the entrance, his response to security personnel, his interaction with medical staff. He's applying his military protocols to a civilian medical setting. It's extraordinary." A soft knock at the conference room door announced the arrival of Dr. James Morrison, the hospital's leading neurologist. "You need to see these," he said, quickly connecting his tablet to the room's display screen. Side by side, images of Connor's brain activity appeared, before and after Atlas's arrival. "The differences are remarkable," Morrison explained, highlighting specific areas of activity. "We're seeing increased responses in regions associated with consciousness and recovery. Atlas's presence isn't just providing comfort, it's actively stimulating neural pathways established during their years of partnership." The medical implications were staggering. Atlas wasn't just a service animal or even a highly trained military dog. He had become an integral part of Connor's recovery process, his presence triggering responses that standard medical interventions alone hadn't achieved. Nancy pulled out another file, this one containing interviews with Connor's neighbors from the mountain community. "They all say the same thing," she reported. "Atlas never left Connor's side, but he also never stopped learning new ways to help. When Connor's mobility decreased, Atlas figured out how to operate the emergency radio. When medications needed refilling, he would remind Connor days in advance." Through the window, they watched as a nurse entered Connor's room to check his AV. Atlas shifted positions smoothly, maintaining contact with his handler while allowing medical access. His behavior showed not just training, but deep understanding. He had become a bridge between Connor and the medical care he needed. Dr. Torres reviewed the cardiac monitoring data, shaking his head in amazement. "Look at these patterns," he said, pointing to specific readings. "Every time Atlas makes physical contact, we see improvement in heart rate and blood pressure. He's not just providing emotional support, he's creating measurable physiological benefits." Mia added new notes to Connor's file documenting the unique aspects of his care plan. Standard medical protocols didn't have categories for a service animal who could anticipate seizures, prevent anxiety attacks, and actively assist with physical therapy. Atlas was rewriting their understanding of what was possible in patient care. Lieutenant Parker shared more details from Atlas's military record, including evaluations that highlighted his exceptional problem-solving abilities. His trainers noted that he didn't just follow commands. He understood underlying purposes and could adapt his responses to changing situations. That's rare, even among highly trained military dogs. The evening light faded outside the conference room windows, but the team remained engrossed in unraveling the layers of this extraordinary partnership. Each new piece of information deepened their appreciation for the bond between handler and dog, a connection that had not only survived war but had evolved to meet every challenge that followed. Mia watched as Atlas adjusted his position again, responding to a slight change in Connor's breathing before any monitors registered the change. The German Shepherd's dedication went beyond training, beyond duty. He had become an extension of his handler, anticipating needs and providing support with an intelligence that challenged their understanding of animal capabilities. Staff Sergeant Michael Connor's recovery showed steady progress as the days passed at Valley Pine Memorial. Each small victory, the first time he sat up unassisted, his initial steps with a walker, the gradual return of his strength, was witnessed and supported by Atlas, whose unwavering presence had become a cornerstone of the healing process. Dr. Mia Mitchell observed from the nurse's station as Connor worked with the physical therapy team, Atlas moving in perfect synchronization with his handler's efforts. The German Shepherd had seamlessly integrated himself into every aspect of rehabilitation, anticipating needs and providing support with an intelligence that continued to amaze the medical staff. His recovery rate is unprecedented, Dr. Torres remarked, reviewing the latest test results. The combination of Atlas's support and Connor's determination, it's creating outcomes we wouldn't have thought possible 2 weeks ago. The charts showed improvements across all major indicators, painting a picture of recovery that defied initial prognoses. Nancy Chen approached with a tablet displaying Connor's morning readings. "Look at these cognitive function scores," she said excitedly. "They're not just improving, they're exceeding his baseline from before the cardiac event. It's like Atlas's presence is helping him rebuild neural pathways we thought were permanently damaged." Through the window of the physical therapy room, they watched as Connor attempted a more challenging balance exercise. Atlas moved with him, step by step, his body positioned perfectly to provide support if needed, while allowing his handler to build independence. Years of partnership showed in their synchronized movements, a dance of trust and understanding. "We've been documenting everything," Dr. Elena Rodriguez said, joining them with a thick research folder. "The VA is extremely interested in how Atlas has influenced Connor's recovery. They're talking about developing new protocols for integrating service animals more deeply into veteran rehabilitation programs." The physical therapy session continued, each movement revealing more about the extraordinary bond between handler and dog. When Connor's strength began to flag, Atlas pressed closer, offering both physical support and emotional encouragement. The German Shepherd's awareness of his handler's limits was precise, knowing exactly when to assist and when to step back. Lieutenant Parker from Fort Richardson had been making regular visits, bringing with her a growing collection of research, materials about military working dogs. "Atlas is redefining what we thought was possible," she explained, spreading photographs across the desk. "His ability to adapt his military training to medical support, it's opening new possibilities for veteran care." Connor's voice carried through the door as he completed another set of exercises, stronger now, but still bearing the marks of his ordeal. "Good boy, Atlas," he said warmly, and the German shepherd's tail wagged with joy at the praise. Even exhausted from therapy, Connor never failed to acknowledge his partner's dedication. Mia reviewed the morning's medication adjustments, noting how they'd been able to reduce certain prescriptions as Connor's natural healing processes accelerated. Atlas's presence seemed to act as a catalyst, promoting recovery in ways that traditional medicine struggled to explain. Officer Rodriguez arrived with new information from his investigation into Connor's mountain rescue. "The cabin's emergency radio was found in Atlas's bed," he reported. "After Connor collapsed, Atlas tried to activate it. There were tooth marks on the transmit button. When that failed, he implemented his backup plan of coming here." The revelation added another layer to their understanding of Atlas's extraordinary actions. The German shepherd hadn't just made a desperate run for help. He had attempted multiple solutions, showing reasoning abilities that challenged conventional understanding of animal intelligence. Connor's physical therapy session concluded, and Atlas helped guide him back to his room, matching his pace perfectly to his handler's tired steps. The dog's attention never wavered, constantly assessing his handler's stability and energy levels, while maintaining protective awareness of their surroundings. "Watch how he positions himself," Dr. Torres pointed out. "Always on Connor's weaker side, always anticipating direction changes before they happen. That's not just training, that's deep understanding of human biomechanics." The medical team had begun studying Atlas's support techniques, hoping to incorporate his intuitive approaches into their standard protocols. Nancy brought in Connor's lunch, setting up the meal as Atlas settled into his usual monitoring position. The German shepherd had developed his own system of subtle signals to alert staff when his handler needed rest, additional pain management, or medical attention. His accuracy in predicting Connor's needs often surpassed their electronic monitoring. Systems.MIA joined Connor for his afternoon medical review, Atlas shifting slightly to include her in their circle of trust. The improvement in Connor's cognitive function was especially evident in these sessions. His memory was sharper, his responses quicker, his engagement with his recovery plan more focused. "Tell me about the cabin, Sergeant Connor," Mia prompted, gently, watching both patient and dog for their reactions. "How did Atlas help you manage there?" The question was part of their ongoing effort to understand the full scope of their partnership. Connor's face softened with pride as he detailed Atlas's many roles. "He learned to operate everything," he explained, his voice stronger now. "The emergency systems, the medication schedules, even the satellite phone. After the last surgery, when the nerve damage got worse, he figured out how to help me with the therapy exercises on his own." Atlas's ears perked up at the mention of therapy, and he demonstrated by gently nudging Connor's arm into a familiar stretch position. The movement was subtle, but perfectly executed, showing how the dog had internalized proper therapeutic techniques. Dr. Elena Rodriguez made detailed notes, particularly interested in how Atlas had adapted his military training to medical support. "The implications for remote veteran care are significant," she observed. A properly trained service animal could help bridge the gap between medical visits, providing constant monitoring and basic therapeutic support. Through the afternoon, more examples of Atlas's extraordinary capabilities emerged. He anticipated Connor's need for pain medication several minutes before his handler showed any outward signs of discomfort. He adjusted his support position microscopically, based on Connor's shifting energy levels. Each action revealed layers of understanding that went far beyond standard service dog training. Lieutenant Parker brought in new developments from Fort Richardson. The base commander wants to start a pilot program, she announced, using Atlas's example as a model for training service dogs specifically for veterans with complex medical needs. They're calling it the Atlas Protocol. The concept excited the medical team, who had witnessed firsthand how Atlas's comprehensive support had accelerated Connor's recovery. The German Shepherd had shown them that the potential for service animal assistance went far beyond what current programs typically provided. Connor worked on his physical therapy exercises in his room, Atlas providing steady support as they moved through each movement. The dog's understanding of proper form was impressive. He would gently correct his handler's positioning when fatigue caused slips in technique, preventing potential strain or injury. Amaya updated Connor's discharge planning notes, incorporating Atlas's role into every aspect of the recovery timeline. The German Shepherd had proven himself to be not just a service animal, but an essential member of the medical team. His presence fundamental to his handler's continued healing. We're seeing changes in how the entire hospital approaches animal assistance, Dr. Torres commented, watching Atlas guide Connor through another exercise. Other departments are starting to recognize the potential for expanded service animal roles in long-term patient care. The mystery of Lena's location weighed heavily on Mia's mind as she reviewed the footage from Connor's mountain cabin. Something about Atlas's determined journey to their hospital suggested there might be more to the story than they initially realized. The German Shepherd's military training in pathfinding and search and rescue operations hinted at capabilities they were only beginning to understand. The breakthrough came during Connor's afternoon physical therapy session. As he worked through his exercises, supported steadily by Atlas, he shared more details about their life in the mountains. After the last surgery, he explained, pausing to catch his breath, Atlas started disappearing for short periods, always at the same time, always in the same direction. Dr. Mia Mitchell's attention sharpened at this information. She glanced at Atlas, who had lifted his head at the mention of these mysterious absences. The German Shepherd's eyes held that same intelligence that had first caught her attention when he appeared at their hospital doors. How long had this been going on? She asked, making careful notes while maintaining eye contact with Connor. The former staff sergeant adjusted his position, Atlas moving smoothly to support the change. About 6 months, Connor replied, his face thoughtful. I figured he was checking the property boundaries. He'd been trained for patrol work, but now I wonder... His voice trailed off as he reached down to scratch behind Atlas's ears. Officer Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. The mountain rescue team found something interesting during their follow-up. Sweep, he said, pulling out his tablet. There's another cabin, about 3 miles from Connor's property. It's well hidden, deliberately off the main trails. The implications of this discovery rippled through the room. Atlas's behavior, his timed absences, his chosen direction, suddenly took on new significance. The German shepherd's ears perked forward as Rodriguez showed them aerial photographs of the area. "We need to check it out," Mia decided, watching Atlas's reaction carefully. The dog's body language had shifted subtly, showing the same focused attention they'd witnessed during his hospital vigil. "I think Atlas has been looking after more than one veteran." The investigation moved quickly after that. Rodriguez coordinated with the mountain rescue team, while Dr. Torres ensured Connor's care would continue smoothly in their absence. Atlas remained by his handler's side, but his occasional glances toward the window seemed to carry new meaning. "Be careful up there," Connor advised as they prepared to leave. "The weather changes fast this time of year." He turned to Atlas, their years of partnership evident in the silent communication that passed between them. "Go on, boy. Show them what you found." Atlas hesitated for just a moment, torn between his duty to his handler and the mission ahead. Connor's gentle, "It's okay," seemed to resolve the conflict. The German shepherd touched his nose to Connor's, and once before moving to Maya's side, his bearing shifting into working mode. The mountain air was crisp and clear as their small team made their way up the narrow trail. Atlas led confidently, occasionally looking back to ensure they were managing the terrain. Mia marveled at how the dog naturally adjusted his pace to accommodate their less experienced hiking abilities. "Look at this," Rodriguez called out, pointing to marks on several trees. "These are ranger blazes, but they're old, decades old. This trail was deliberately left off recent maps." The discovery added another layer to the mystery they were unraveling. Atlas paused at a fork in the path, his nose working the air before he chose the right-hand route. The trail here was faint, nearly invisible unless you knew what to look for. Mia realized they were following a path that only Atlas knew, one he had carved out during those regular absences from Connor's cabin. The hidden cabin appeared suddenly, tucked into a natural fold in the landscape. Its design echoed Connor's home, adapted for someone with mobility challenges, but even more isolated. Atlas's pace quickened slightly as they approached, his mission becoming clear. Rodriguez drew his weapon as they neared the entrance, but Atlas's relaxed posture suggested there was no immediate threat. The German shepherd moved to the door with purpose, looking back at Mia with an expression that clearly said, "Hurry." Inside, they found signs of recent habitation but no occupants. The space was meticulously organized, with medical supplies and mobility aids carefully arranged. On the wall, a familiar sight made Mia's breath catch. A shadow box displaying military medals, including a Purple Heart. "Over here," Rodriguez called from a small study. The desk held a laptop and scattered papers, including what appeared to be medical records. "Look at the name, Captain Thomas Mitchell. He was part of Connor's unit, declared MIA after the IED attack." The pieces began falling into place. Atlas hadn't just been making random patrols. He had been checking on another survivor of that fateful day in Afghanistan, someone else who carried the scars of war. The German shepherd's intelligence had led him to create a link between these two isolated veterans. Mia examined the medical supplies, while Rodriguez called for additional support. The medications were similar to Connor's, suggesting Captain Mitchell struggled with similar injuries. Atlas moved through the cabin with familiar ease, clearly comfortable in this space. "He's been caring for both of them," Mia realized, watching. Atlas' nose open a cabinet to reveal carefully organized pill containers, making sure they each had what they needed, creating a connection they might not have found on their own. The sound of a helicopter broke the mountain silence. Rodriguez's radio crackled with updates. Rescue teams had found signs of recent movement heading east toward an old ranger station. Atlas's ears perked up at this news, his body language confirming their direction. "He's not just a service dog," Mia said softly, understanding dawning in her voice. "He's been a guardian for all of them, keeping them safe in their isolation, knowing when they needed more help than he could provide." The German Shepherd's journey to their hospital took on new meaning. He had chosen the one place that could help both veterans. The mountain rescue team arrived with additional resources, including thermal imaging equipment. Atlas worked seamlessly with the search teams, his military training evident in how he coordinated with their efforts. His previous trips to this cabin had created a map in his mind that he now shared with the rescuers. "The weather's turning," one of the rescue team members warned, pointing to gathering clouds. "If Captain Mitchell is out there, we need to find him before the storm hits." Atlas was already moving, leading them toward the ranger station with renewed purpose. Maya marveled at the complexity of what they were discovering. Atlas had not only maintained his primary duty to Connor, but had extended his protection to include another wounded warrior. The dog's ability to recognize medical distress, navigate complex terrain, and coordinate assistance spoke of intelligence that transcended ordinary training. As they followed Atlas through the mountain wilderness, Maya thought about the bonds forged in combat that extended far beyond human understanding. The German Shepherd had become a living link between these veterans, his loyalty expanding to encompass all those who had shared that fateful day in Afghanistan. The old ranger station appeared through the trees, its weather-beaten walls barely visible against the darkening sky. Atlas's pace quickened, his nose working the air as they approached. Mia saw the relief in his bearing. They had arrived in time, just as his carefully planned journey to the hospital had brought help to Connor. When it was most needed, inside the station they found Captain Mitchell, weakened but alive. The resemblance to Connor's condition was striking. Another warrior who had retreated to the mountains, whose isolation had nearly cost him everything. Atlas moved to his side with familiar comfort, receiving a weak pat of recognition. The reunion at Valley Pine Memorial Hospital unfolded with quiet intensity as Captain Thomas Mitchell was wheeled into the ICU wing, Atlas padding silently beside the gurney. Staff Sergeant Connor, now strong enough to sit in a wheelchair, waited anxiously as his former comrade was settled into the adjacent room. The German Shepherd moved between them with practiced ease, his mission now expanded to watching over both warriors. Dr. Mia Mitchell observed the scene with professional interest and deep emotion as the two veterans saw each other for the first time in 5 years. Connor's face showed a mix of relief and concern as he took in Mitchell's weakened condition, while Atlas positioned himself where he could monitor both rooms simultaneously. "They were in the same vehicle," Nancy explained softly, reviewing Captain Mitchell's newly recovered military records. When the IED hit, Atlas pulled Connor out first, then went back for Mitchell. But Mitchell disappeared during medical evacuation. Everyone thought. Her voice trailed off as she watched the German Shepherd maintain his vigilant position. Dr. Torres arrived with Mitchell's initial assessment results, his expression thoughtful as he compared them to Connor's charts. "The similarities in their injuries are remarkable," he noted. Same pattern of nerve damage, similar cardiac complications. They've both been dealing with the same long-term effects of that day. Atlas's attention shifted slightly as medical staff began settling Mitchell into his room. The German Shepherd's behavior revealed long familiarity with both veterans' medical needs, moving to alert nurses when Mitchell's breathing showed signs of distress before any monitors registered the change. He's been caring for both of them all this time, Mia realized, watching Atlas guide a nurse to the exact position that would help Mitchell breathe more easily. Making regular checks, monitoring their conditions, creating a safety net they didn't even know they had. Connor wheeled, himself closer to Mitchell's room, Atlas immediately adjusting his position to facilitate communication between the two veterans. "Tom," Connor called softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you let me know you were up there?" Mitchell's response came slowly, his voice weak but clear. "Couldn't face it. The pity, the questions. Easier to disappear." His eyes moved to Atlas, showing deep understanding. "But he found me anyway, kept checking on me, bringing supplies sometimes, like he knew we both needed watching over." The German Shepherd's intelligence had led him to create a connection between these isolated warriors, recognizing their similar needs and finding ways to provide support to both. His military training in search and rescue, combined with his experience as a medical assistance dog, had evolved into something extraordinary. Lieutenant Parker arrived from Fort Richardson with additional historical records from the unit. The bond between service dogs and their handlers is well documented, she explained, spreading photographs across the nurses' station. But Atlas's ability to extend that protective instinct to another member of his unit, to recognize similar medical needs and provide appropriate assistance, it's unprecedented. Mia studied the images that showed Atlas in Afghanistan, working with both Connor and Mitchell during various operations. The German Shepherd's loyalty to his unit hadn't ended with their return home. It had adapted to meet their changing needs, expanding to encompass both veterans in their isolation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined them, bringing preliminary results from Mitchell's cardiac evaluation. Like Connor, he experienced a severe cardiac event, she reported. Atlas must have recognized the similar symptoms, knew he couldn't handle both situations alone anymore. That's what brought him to us. Through the ICU windows, they watched as Atlas moved between the two rooms with practiced efficiency. His behavior showed intimate knowledge of both veterans' needs, adjusting Mitchell's oxygen tube with gentle teeth, then shifting to help Connor maintain proper posture in his wheelchair. "Look at this," Officer Rodriguez said, showing them enhanced footage from Connor's cabin security cameras. The videos revealed Atlas's regular patterns, leaving at specific times, carrying small items between the cabins, maintaining a constant watch over both veterans without either fully realizing the extent of his care. Nancy brought in Mitchell's personal effects recovered from his cabin, including a journal that detailed his isolated life in the mountains. "He writes about Atlas," she said, carefully turning pages, "called him his guardian angel, thought Connor had sent him deliberately. Never realized the dog had chosen to watch over them both." The journal entries painted a picture of gradual healing, with Atlas playing a crucial role in preventing total isolation. The German Shepherd had become a living link between the wounded warriors, his presence providing not just medical support, but a connection to the brotherhood they'd known in service. Dr. Torres reviewed both veterans' recovery charts, noting the accelerated healing rates since their reunion. The psychological benefits of reconnection, combined with Atlas's continued support, it's creating optimal conditions for recovery, he observed. They're stronger together, just like they were in the field. Mia watched as Atlas guided a physical therapy session that now included both veterans. The German Shepherd moved seamlessly between them, offering support and encouragement as they worked to rebuild their strength. His understanding of their individual needs and limitations showed years of careful observation and adaptation. Lieutenant Parker shared new findings from her research into military working dogs. "We're seeing something remarkable here," she explained. Atlas has essentially created his own rehabilitation protocol, combining his military training with medical assistance skills. He's showing us possibilities we never considered. Connor and Mitchell worked through their exercises together, their movements strengthening as they pushed each other to improve. Atlas monitored their progress with professional attention, intervening with gentle corrections when fatigue threatened their form. His presence created a bridge between their shared past and their ongoing recovery. "The VA is very interested in this case," Dr. Rodriguez announced, reviewing preliminary reports. "The implications for veteran care are significant, not just the medical support aspects, but the potential for service dogs to help prevent isolation and maintain connections within units." Officer Rodriguez brought updates from the mountain rescue team's investigation of both cabins. Atlas had created supply caches along the route between them, he reported. Emergency medical kits, food, water, all positioned where either veteran could access them if needed. He planned for every contingency. The German Shepherd's strategic thinking had extended far beyond basic service dog duties. He had, essentially, established a support network in the mountains, using his military training to ensure both veterans' safety while respecting their desire for privacy. Mia made detailed notes as she observed Atlas's interactions with both patients. The dog's ability to anticipate needs, coordinate care, and maintain emotional connections demonstrated a level of intelligence and dedication that challenged their understanding of animal capabilities. Mitchell's strength improved steadily as the days passed, his isolation replaced by the comfort of companionship and professional care. Atlas continued his dual watch with unwavering attention, his presence a constant reminder of the bonds forged in combat and maintained through years of silent guardianship. The story of Atlas's extraordinary care for his wounded warriors spread through the hospital, inspiring new approaches to veteran support and service animal training. His example showed that healing could come in unexpected forms, guided by loyalty that transcended ordinary understanding. As evening settled over the ICU, Atlas took up his usual position between the two rooms, his vigilant presence a testament to the enduring spirit of service. The German Shepherd had not only saved his handler's life in combat, but had continued his mission of protection long after the war ended, expanding his dedication to encompass all those under his care. Through the quiet hospital halls, the sound of shared laughter drifted from the veterans' rooms, a sound of healing, of reconnection, of barriers broken down by the unwavering dedication of a dog who refused to leave any soldier behind. Atlas's ears perked up at the sound, his tail wagging gently as he maintained his watch over the warriors he had chosen to protect. Spring arrived at Valley Pine Memorial with gentle warmth, transforming the hospital grounds into a canvas of fresh blooms and new beginnings. Staff Sergeant Connor and Captain Mitchell had moved from the ICU to the specialized Veterans Rehabilitation Wing, their recovery progressing under Atlas's watchful eye. The German Shepherd maintained his dedicated vigil, adapting his routine to include therapy sessions, medical treatments, and the increasing independence of both warriors. Dr. Mia Mitchell stood at the window of the rehabilitation gym, watching as Connor and Mitchell worked through their morning exercises. Atlas moved between them with practiced grace, offering support and encouragement while maintaining his protective watch. The bond between the two veterans had strengthened alongside their physical recovery, their shared experiences and understanding creating a foundation for healing. Their progress is remarkable, Dr. Torres commented, reviewing the latest evaluation results. The combination of professional care, peer support, and Atlas's continued assistance has accelerated their recovery beyond our initial projections. The charts showed steady improvement in all major indicators, from cardiac function to neurological responses. Nancy Chen approached with a stack of documents from Fort Richardson. The base commander wants to implement expanded service dog training. Based on Atlas's example, she explained, spreading the proposals across the desk. They're calling it the Guardian Protocol, combining military working dog skills with medical support capabilities. Through the gym's windows, they watched as Atlas demonstrated his unique approach to rehabilitation support. When Mitchell's balance wavered during a particularly challenging exercise, the German Shepherd was there instantly, providing stable support while allowing the veteran to regain his composure independently. The dog's understanding of when to assist and when to step back showed deep insight into the recovery process. Lieutenant Parker arrived with news from the VA's research team. "We're documenting everything," she said excitedly. Atlas's methods of combining security sweeps with medical monitoring, his ability to coordinate care between multiple patients, his strategic planning for emergency response. It's revolutionizing our understanding of service animal capabilities. The morning therapy session concluded, and Atlas guided both veterans to the small garden courtyard that had become their favorite rest spot. The German Shepherd settled into a position that allowed him to monitor both his charges while maintaining awareness of their surroundings, his military training seamlessly integrated with his medical support role. "Tell me about that day," Connor said softly to Mitchell, his voice carrying through the open window. "After the IED, I never knew what happened after Atlas got me out." The German Shepherd's ears perked up at the mention of that fateful moment. His attention focused on the conversation. Mitchell's face showed the weight of memory as he began to speak. "I was trapped, couldn't feel my legs. Thought that was it. Then I saw him coming back through the smoke." His hand reached out to touch Atlas's fur. He'd already gotten you clear, but he knew there were more of us. Wouldn't give up until everyone was safe. Dr. Elena Rodriguez made careful notes as she observed their interaction. "The psychological healing is as significant as the physical," she remarked. "Atlas has created a safe space for them to process their trauma together, supporting each other through the memories while maintaining medical stability." Officer Rodriguez brought updates from his investigation into the mountain cabins. "We've mapped out Atlas's entire support network," he reported, unfolding a detailed chart. "Supply caches, emergency routes, observation points." He essentially created a military-grade safety system adapted for medical assistance. The strategic planning involved is extraordinary, Mia studied the map, noting how Atlas had positioned resources to maximize accessibility while maintaining the veterans' privacy. The German Shepherd's intelligence had led him to develop a comprehensive care system that respected both their physical limitations and their desire for independence. "Look at this," Nancy said, pointing to a series of timestamps from the cabin security footage. Atlas coordinated his checks based on their medication schedules, therapy needs, and risk factors. He wasn't just monitoring them, he was managing their care with professional precision. The afternoon brought new developments as the VA's medical review board arrived to evaluate the unique rehabilitation program that had evolved around Atlas's methods. The German Shepherd demonstrated his techniques with quiet confidence, showing how military training principles could be adapted for medical support. "We're seeing applications beyond veteran care," Dr. Torres explained to the review board. Atlas's approach to patient monitoring, emergency response, and rehabilitation support could be adapted for civilian medical settings, particularly in remote or underserved areas. Connor and Mitchell shared stories of their time in the mountains, revealing how Atlas had subtly maintained connections between them even in their isolation. The German Shepherd had carried small items between their cabins, photographs, notes, pieces of their shared history that kept the bonds of brotherhood alive. Lieutenant Parker presented findings from her analysis of Atlas's training history. His original military certification included advanced pathfinding, threat assessment, and casualty response, she explained. But what's remarkable is how he adapted those skills for long-term medical support, creating his own protocols based on his handler's needs. The review board watched as Atlas guided both veterans through their afternoon therapy sessions, his methods showing a sophisticated understanding of rehabilitation principles. The German Shepherd's ability to adjust his support based on each patient's progress while maintaining overall security demonstrated remarkable cognitive flexibility. "He's not just a service dog or a military working dog," Mia observed, watching Atlas coordinate with the physical therapy team. "He's become something entirely new, a guardian who combines military precision with medical expertise and emotional support." The success of Atlas's approach led to discussions about expanding the hospital's service animal program. Dr. Rodriguez presented plans for a specialized training facility that would incorporate lessons learned from the German Shepherds. "Extraordinary example. The implications for veteran care are far-reaching," she explained. "Atlas has shown us that properly trained service animals can provide comprehensive support that bridges the gap between medical facilities and home care, particularly for veterans in isolated areas." As evening approached, Atlas maintained his position between Connor and Mitchell, his presence a constant source of stability and reassurance. The German Shepherd's dedication had not only saved their lives, but had created a model for future veteran support programs. "We've been tracking his decision-making processes," Lieutenant Parker shared, displaying detailed behavioral analyses. "The way he prioritizes medical needs while maintaining security protocols, his ability to recognize and respond to emergency situations, his methods of coordinating multiple aspects of patient care. It's unprecedented." The hospital staff had learned to rely on Atlas's insights, incorporating his alerts and responses into their treatment plans. The German Shepherd's accuracy in predicting changes in his patients' conditions often surpassed traditional monitoring methods. Mia made final notes in her daily report, documenting the continuing evolution of Atlas's care techniques. The German Shepherd had transformed their understanding of what was possible in veteran rehabilitation, creating a legacy that would benefit countless others. Through the evening quiet, Atlas maintained his watchful presence, his dedication unwavering as both veterans prepared for rest. His mission had expanded far beyond his original military training, yet he carried out his duties with the same loyalty and precision that had earned him honors in combat. The bonds of trust and understanding that Atlas had nurtured between Connor and Mitchell had become a cornerstone of their recovery. The German Shepherd's intelligence and devotion had not only saved their lives, but had shown the way forward for a new approach to veteran care. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Valley Pine Memorial's newly dedicated Atlas Wing, its freshly mounted sign gleaming above the entrance. Inside, what had once been a standard rehabilitation unit had transformed into a pioneering center for integrated veteran care, inspired by the extraordinary partnership between a German Shepherd and his wounded warriors. Staff Sergeant Connor stood at the podium in the wing central courtyard, his voice steady as he addressed the gathered crowd of medical staff, military personnel, and community members. Atlas sat at attention beside him, his posture reflecting years of military discipline, even as his eyes constantly scanned the area, maintaining his protective watch over both Connor and Captain Mitchell. 5 years ago, I thought isolation was the answer, Connor began, his hand resting gently on Atlas's head. I believed that retreating to the mountains would somehow make the memories easier to bear, but this remarkable dog knew better. He understood that healing doesn't happen alone. Dr. Maya Mitchell watched from the front row as Connor shared their story, her medical notes documenting every aspect of the extraordinary recovery that had unfolded under their care. The German Shepherd's methods had revolutionized their approach to veteran rehabilitation, creating protocols that combined military precision with comprehensive medical support. Atlas didn't just save our lives in Afghanistan, Captain Mitchell added, joining Connor at the podium. He kept saving us day after day, creating connections we couldn't see and refusing to let us disappear into our isolation. He showed us that the bonds forged in combat don't end when the war does. Lieutenant Parker stepped forward, presenting the official documentation that would establish the Atlas Protocol as a standard part of military working dog training. What we've witnessed here goes beyond service animal support, she explained. Atlas has demonstrated capabilities that challenge our understanding of animal intelligence and dedication. The ceremony continued as Dr. Torres unveiled the research findings that would shape future veteran care programs. The combination of military training principles with medical support techniques has created unprecedented outcomes, he reported. Atlas's methods have shown us new possibilities for rehabilitation and recovery. Nancy Chen guided visitors through the specialized training facilities that had been developed based on Atlas's example. The German Shepherd had inspired design elements that facilitated both security and medical support, creating spaces where veterans could heal while maintaining their dignity and independence. Watch how he coordinates with the therapy teams, Dr. Elena Rodriguez pointed out as Atlas demonstrated his techniques with a group of new service dogs in training. He's teaching them to recognize subtle changes in patient conditions while maintaining protective awareness. It's a completely integrated approach. The success of the Atlas Wing had drawn attention from veteran care facilities across the country. Officer Rodriguez shared security footage that documented the German Shepherd's extraordinary methods, showing how military working dog skills could be adapted for long-term medical support. The supply cache system he created in the mountains has been incorporated into our emergency response protocols, Rodriguez explained. Atlas showed us how to build support networks that respect veterans' need for independence while ensuring their safety. Connor and Mitchell had become integral parts of the training program, working alongside Atlas to help other veterans find their path to recovery. The German Shepherd's dedication had not only healed their physical wounds, but had restored their sense of purpose and connection. He never gave up on us, Mitchell reflected, watching Atlas guide a therapy session. Even when we'd given up on ourselves, he kept fighting. That's the legacy we're building here, a promise that no warrior gets left behind, even after they come home. The Atlas protocol had expanded beyond its original scope, inspiring new approaches to veteran care nationwide. Mia reviewed reports from other facilities that had implemented programs based on their findings, each success story adding to the growing evidence of their effectiveness. The psychological benefits are as significant as the physical improvements, Dr. Torres noted, presenting data from their long-term studies. The combination of medical support, security protocols, and emotional connection creates an environment where true healing can occur. Atlas moved through the ceremony with quiet dignity, his attention never wavering from his duties. When Connor's voice faltered slightly during his speech, the German Shepherd pressed closer, offering the steady support that had become so familiar to everyone at Valley Pine Memorial. Lieutenant Parker shared updates from Fort Richardson's new training facility, where the next generation of service dogs was learning to combine military working dog skills with medical assistance capabilities. Atlas has redefined what's possible, she said. He's shown us that the principles of military service can be adapted to create comprehensive support systems for our veterans. The afternoon brought demonstrations of the specialized equipment and techniques that had been developed based on Atlas's methods. The German Shepherd worked seamlessly with the medical teams, showing how his approach to patient care had evolved, from instinct and training into a sophisticated system of support. Notice how he maintains situational awareness while focusing on medical needs, Dr. Rodriguez explained to visiting physicians. This balance of security and care is crucial for veterans dealing with both physical injuries and combat-related stress. Connor and Mitchell had recovered enough to assist in training new handler dog teams, sharing their experiences to help others understand the depth of partnership possible between veterans and their service animals. Atlas supervised these sessions with professional attention, ensuring that his hard-won knowledge was passed on accurately. The bond between handler and dog is just the beginning, Connor explained to a group of new participants. Atlas showed us that these partnerships can grow into something far more comprehensive, a complete system of support that addresses every aspect of recovery. The success of the Atlas Wing had drawn support from military and medical communities alike. Dr. Torres presented plans for expanding the program, incorporating lessons learned from Atlas's extraordinary example into standard protocols for veteran care facilities nationwide. What we've witnessed here isn't just about service animal support, he emphasized. It's about recognizing and nurturing the incredible potential for healing that exists in these partnerships. Atlas has shown us the way forward. As evening approached, the ceremony concluded with a quiet moment of recognition for all those who had contributed to the program's success. Atlas maintained his position between Connor and Mitchell, his presence a living testament to the power of unwavering dedication and intelligent care. The German Shepherd's legacy would continue through the countless lives touched by his example, his methods becoming a standard for excellence in veteran support programs across the country. What had begun with one dog's refusal to leave his post had grown into a movement that promised to transform the future of veteran care. Mia made final notes in the official documentation, recording not just medical outcomes, but the profound impact of Atlas's dedication on their understanding of healing and recovery. The German Shepherd had shown them that true care transcends conventional boundaries, creating connections that restore both body and spirit. Through it all, Atlas maintained his quiet vigilance, his intelligence and loyalty, serving as an inspiration to all who witnessed his work. He had not only saved his handlers, but had created a legacy that would continue to save others, guided by the unwavering spirit of service that had brought him to their door on that winter morning. The sun set over Valley Pine Memorial, casting warm light across the Atlas Wing's courtyard, where new beginnings would continue to unfold. The German Shepherd's extraordinary journey from military working dog to pioneering medical guardian had opened doors they never knew existed, showing them that the deepest healing comes through bonds of understanding and unwavering faith. Valley Pine Memorial's new Atlas Wing continued to evolve. Its impact rippled beyond the hospital walls into the surrounding military community. The lessons learned from Atlas's extraordinary service had sparked a transformation in how the medical establishment approached veteran care, creating ripples of change that touched countless lives. Dr. Mia Mitchell stood in the observation room, watching as Atlas guided a new group of veterans through their morning rehabilitation session. The German Shepherd's methods had been refined into a comprehensive system of care that combined security, medical support, and emotional healing in ways they were still discovering. "The data's extraordinary," Dr. Torres commented, reviewing the latest research findings. "We're seeing consistent improvements across all patient groups who participate in the integrated care program. Atlas hasn't just created a method, he's revolutionized our entire approach to rehabilitation." Beyond the glass, Connor and Mitchell worked with a recently admitted veteran, their own recovery serving as living proof of the program's effectiveness. Atlas moved between them with practiced efficiency, his presence providing both practical support and silent encouragement to the newcomer struggling with their first steps. Lieutenant Parker arrived with updates from Fort Richardson's training facility, where the Atlas protocol had become a fundamental part of their service dog program. "The results are exceeding our expectations," she reported, spreading photographs across the conference table. "The new teams are showing remarkable adaptability in combining medical support with protective functions." Through the morning, more evidence of Atlas's lasting impact emerged as visiting medical professionals observed his techniques. The German Shepherd demonstrated the subtle ways he monitored patient vital signs while maintaining security awareness, his methods now being studied and replicated in veteran care facilities nationwide. "Watch how he anticipates needs," Nancy Chen pointed out to the observers. "It's not just about responding to emergencies, it's about preventing them. Atlas understands each patient's limitations, and adjusts his support accordingly. The German shepherd's cognitive abilities continue to impress even those who worked with him daily. Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented findings from their long-term study of Atlas's rehabilitation techniques. The integration of military training principles with medical support has created outcomes we never thought possible, she explained. These dogs aren't just helping veterans recover, they're helping them thrive. Officer Rodriguez shared security, analyses that highlighted the sophisticated nature of Atlas's protective systems. He's created a model that balances independence with safety, he noted. The veterans feel secure without feeling monitored, which is crucial for their psychological recovery. The afternoon brought a special ceremony as another group of veterans completed their initial rehabilitation program. Atlas sat at attention as Connor addressed the graduates, his presence a reminder of the extraordinary journey that had led to this moment. When Atlas first appeared at our hospital doors, we thought we were witnessing a miracle, Connor began. But what we've learned is that miracles don't just happen. They're built through dedication, intelligence, and unwavering faith in the possibility of healing. Mia documented the proceedings, noting how Atlas's influence had extended far beyond their original expectations. The German shepherd had not only saved his handlers, but had created a legacy of hope and recovery that would continue to grow. Mitchell shared his perspective with the graduating group, describing how Atlas had maintained connections between isolated veterans even before they recognized their need for community. He understood something we couldn't see, Mitchell explained, that healing happens through relationships, through the bonds that remind us we're not alone. The success of the Atlas Wing had attracted attention from military medical commands worldwide. Dr. Torres presented video conferences with international facilities implementing similar programs, each adapting Atlas's methods to their specific needs while maintaining the core principles of integrated care. The psychological impact is particularly significant, Dr. Rodriguez noted, reviewing patient progress reports. The combination of physical support and emotional security creates an environment where veterans feel safe enough to truly engage with their recovery process. Atlas demonstrated his techniques with a group of service dogs in advanced training, showing them how to balance medical monitoring with protective awareness. His ability to teach these complex skills had surprised even his handlers, revealing new depths to his intelligence and adaptability. Lieutenant Parker shared updates on the expanding Atlas protocol now being implemented at military bases across the country. What started with one extraordinary dog has grown into a movement, she said. Atlas showed us possibilities we never imagined in veteran care. The afternoon therapy sessions showcased the practical applications of Atlas's methods as he worked with veterans at different stages of recovery. His ability to adjust his support based on individual needs while maintaining overall security demonstrated the sophistication of his approach. Notice how he creates connections between patients, Nancy pointed out. Just like he did with Connor and Mitchell in the mountains, he helps build support networks that extend beyond the hospital walls. The German shepherd's social intelligence had become a crucial component of their rehabilitation program. Dr. Torres presented research findings that quantified the impact of Atlas's integrated care approach. The combination of physical therapy, security protocols, and emotional support has produced recovery rates that exceed all previous standards, he reported. We're seeing healing that transforms not just bodies, but lives. As evening approached, Atlas maintained his vigilant presence as the Atlas wing prepared for night shift operations. The German Shepherd's dedication had inspired changes in how they approached around-the-clock care, ensuring that veterans felt secure and supported. At all hours, Connor and Mitchell worked with the night staff, sharing insights gained from their years under Atlas's care. He taught us that recovery doesn't follow a schedule, Connor explained. Support needs to be consistent, adaptable, and always available, just like Atlas has been for us. The German Shepherd's legacy continued to grow as more facilities adopted. His methods, each success story adding to the evidence of his extraordinary impact on veteran care. Atlas had shown them that the bonds between handlers and service dogs could evolve into comprehensive systems of healing and support. Maya reviewed applications from medical centers seeking to implement the Atlas protocol, each request representing potential new beginnings for veterans in need of innovative care approaches. The German Shepherd's influence had extended far beyond their small military town, creating ripples of change throughout the medical community. Through it all, Atlas maintained his quiet dignity, his intelligence and dedication, serving as an inspiration to all who witnessed his work. He had not only saved his handlers, but had created a model for future generations of service dogs, showing them how to combine military precision with compassionate care. The evening light cast long shadows through the Atlas Wing's corridors as another day of healing and hope drew to a close. The German Shepherd's extraordinary journey from military working dog to pioneering medical guardian had opened new pathways for veteran recovery. Guided by his unwavering spirit of service and dedication to those in his care. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who believes in the healing power of unexpected connections. Together, we can spread hope and inspire more stories of transformation and recovery.